Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting of August 21st, 2025. We'll call the meeting to order. We do have quorum. We have a regret from Councillor Cuddle, who's on vacation, and our other two should be on their way. Just got a text. They're on the way in the building, so that's great. So we'll call the meeting to order and do our land acknowledgement that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and the traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. Excuse me. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaty signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So our staff liaison team here with us today, our solicitor is William Hatfield, our Maggie McDonald, Executive Director of Parks and Rec, and our legislative assistant pinch hitting today is Dorothy Mapunga, who is our legislative assistant. So we'll now ask for an approval of the minutes of June 6, 2025. Councillor St. Amand, seconded by Councillor Steele. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Nay. The motion is carried. My apologies. We also have a guest with us. Councillor White is attending. So thank you for joining us, Councillor White. Approval of the order of business and approval of additions or deletions. Dorothy, do we have any additions or deletions?
No additions or deletions have been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you so much. A motion to approve, please. Councillor Steele, seconded by Councillor St. Amand. Thank you. Welcome, Councillor Purdy. Business arising out of the minutes, there is none. A call for declaration of conflict of interests. Seeing none. Motions of reconsideration, there are none. Motions of rescission, there are none. Consideration of deferred business as our first item, which is 8.1, which is the Park Steward Program. And we do have a presentation for this item. So we welcome Richard Harvey, Manager of Policy and Planning, and I believe Gareth Evans, Recreation Planning Specialist. Is Gareth here? No.
It's just me.
It's just you. I thought I was looking, I was like, I don't see him.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Again, Richard Harvey, Manager of Policy and Planning. Through my presentation, I'll just walk you through the essential elements of the report. It stems from a meeting of Regional Council in which a motion was made by Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor Morse, that Halifax Regional Council request a staff report on a Park Stewards program to facilitate citizen volunteering in HRM parks. Now, the context of that motion was really that Regional Council was looking to consider the development of a park stewardship program to facilitate community involvement in the care of parks. It was fully recognized that, in fact, there are groups, organizations that do some work through formalized agreements that provide some services, if you like, particularly in rural areas of the municipality, under, again, a contract element of service delivery. What the intention around this motion was really to develop a program by which maintenance and service agreements could really be facilitated in a less formal manner. So it was really about how it is that individual citizens or citizen groups could really do some activities, do some work in the care of parks, which would be less formalized than a much more substantive agreement that we have in some limited circumstances. So in terms of our findings when we looked into this, we did find that some local volunteer initiatives exist already within the municipality, including through our naturalization and community gardening programs, and there are occasional community park cleanups, the municipality does not have a formal framework for coordinating citizen involvement in park stewardship. We reviewed other Canadian municipalities and found that many do have successful park stewardship programs. With this, we have found that through some modest improvements under the umbrella of a park stewardship program, we could have the potential to yield significant improvements in facilitating the way in which individual citizens and citizen groups could be involved in the care and maintenance of our parks. So the first element being suggested in the report under this umbrella of a park stewardship program would be the establishment of an Adopt a Park program. And that would be one in which community groups could register to steward a park for a minimum of 2 years. And that's recommended in the report. At a minimum, this would involve a commitment to undertaking park cleanups and oversight. It could be led by citizens, it could be led by community groups. And through this program, such groups would be recognized by the municipality. And that could occur in a variety of different ways. It could occur as an adjunct to some of our community park identification signs to recognize a group, or in other ways to, in terms of our website or otherwise. But it really would be if a group identified as such for a minimum of 2 years, we would find ways of recognizing them. We're also highlighting single event park cleanups. Those are ones which are far more ad hoc, by which a group, a citizen, could actually undertake a park cleanup. And interestingly enough, and I think there are some members of council that are already familiar with this, there are already a multitude of events that happen in the municipality through the provincial Great Nova Scotia Pick-Me-Up program. So we have an established program within the province that already facilitates this. It's simply that we may not be promoting it to the degree in which we should be or can be within the municipality under this umbrella. So this is essentially, a bit of an image that shows that there is a program that's in place. It's a two-parter. There's an Adopt a Highway and Adopt a Pick-Me-Up program, and that's the one we're referring to now. So this already exists. It allows for, again, citizens and community groups to identify through this program. Could be a weekend pickup within a park, and I think some councillors are already aware of this. So as a highlight, these are already occurring. So this is a map from that Great Nova Scotia Pick-Me-Up, and there have been events, and there continue to be events largely through the summer by which there are community cleanups that are happening through our parks. So you can see the way that works. It's a very simplified process by which someone can register to be a team leader, identify where the rally point is for a cleanup, set the date and time. If it's a community group, they will have already organized. If you're interested, you can go and look at this map and identify who you'd like to contact to join in on such an activity. Now, we already have an existing naturalization program. But again, through this umbrella, we would hope that with the Adopt a Park program would include a promotion of the park cleanup, and the naturalization program would be included and enhanced really in terms of how it is that it promotes its program and has volunteers join. So the major input, the major change with this would be the creation of a registration and intake system to organize volunteers and promote the program. And finally, again, an established program through our community gardening is that we would want to enhance this in terms of encapsulating them within the umbrella of park stewardship, and then again, further promote with possible small improvements such as mapping to help identify locations to facilitate people that may be looking to join a particular gardening group. So, in terms of advancing this, now this matter's been a little bit long in terms of being deferred and getting to committee. We have already advanced some improvements to our website to help identify this as an actual umbrella initiative. So this is an image of what our website, if you Googled, if you essentially did a search under our website, under volunteering, you would have gotten this page that primarily highlighted volunteer awards, volunteer with boards and committees. We've already done a website improvement such that really what we've got now is a portal for volunteering within parks. So you'll see that just on the bottom. So we've already made that change to our website. We're not necessarily promoting it to the degree in which we might with the launch of this program, but now if you're interested in volunteering in parks, this portal takes you to a much more enhanced website presence by which we are highlighting the ability to volunteer within our parks. So we've highlighted the Parks Cleanup Program, Naturalization, and Community Gardens. And our next step would be likely for the start of next year would be to highlight the Adopt a Park program along with that. And with CPED's recommendation to Regional Council, what we would be doing is launching this program to a much greater degree, enhancing it through social media and other further improvements to see what we can do in terms of advising the public and community groups of the opportunities for volunteering within our parks. So with that, that concludes the presentation, and I'm always available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Richard. Vice Chair Steele, would you like to put the motion on the floor?
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
That the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to develop the Park Stewardship Program as outlined in the discussion section of the staff report dated June 10, 2025.
Seconded by Councillor Purdy. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Steele.
Thanks very much, Mr. Harvey, for the presentation. I'm always very excited to talk about parks and facilities outdoors, green space. I'm really curious. I have a few questions. I know a couple of weeks ago, it may have only been a week ago now, we had a presentation and a big discussion about wilderness areas and a stewardship program. Are you, maybe I'll ask all my questions and then you can, are you working with that group? I'm wondering if there's any synergies between what you're proposing here, I would expect there are, and this. So there did seem to be some complementarity between these two directions. In terms of the direction promoting more volunteerism, a few questions. I'm curious, how was the community consulted? Were there consultations with residents on this? Is there potential interest? And I know we've done lots of surveying through Shape Your City, so I expect yes. The answer is yes. Are linear parks included when we talk about parks strategies? I'm always very interested in linear parks because they're both active transportation and parks. And then once you call or respond to the website and volunteer, what happens next? I'm curious because you may have a group of volunteers, but how do you get them organized and who's on first? So I'm curious about how all that works. And I expect it involves community developers. I haven't had any exposure yet to a community developer, so I'm not 100% sure I know what their role is or how that plays out. So a lot of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's likely that for the wilderness presentation that you received and thought about, that's probably going to be a more involved arrangement. So this is really about that sort of grassroots, how is it that I as a citizen might become more involved? But certainly if it's more so, it was a group that wanted to care for an area, could there be no limitations in terms of, let's say, a wilderness area, but of course a larger park would probably require a much more comprehensive, engagement with that group to find out exactly how it is that they would be undertaking it. So if, for example, you were interested in Adopt a Park, there wouldn't be a limitation, linear park or otherwise. That would be something that we'd be able to consider and hope that we would be able to, use volunteers for, how it is that they might care for a park. Now, there's a couple of different, there's a couple of different tiers by which something can happen in terms of a community-based volunteerism in a park. If you're interested solely in undertaking, let's say, a half-day cleanup of a park, that's something you can organize right now. And in actual fact, there's a very straightforward and simple registration for that through the Great Nova Scotia Pick Me Up program. You just basically need to identify the park that you're selecting, the date, the time, who's organizing it, and it really doesn't need to involve the municipality at any great degree. Now, we do have coordination through our solid waste division, and of course anything that's more involved in terms of the number of bags or, if it's a substantial pickup, we do coordinate that already. So it's really a very simplified process. And again, for the Adopt a Park program, we'd be looking at really developing the intake process, probably over the winter, depending on how Regional Council responds to this. And then we'd have an intake process, both for the Adopt a Park and for the naturalization program that we would launch and then enhance as we go through this. I'm hoping I've got all your questions.
Oh, what group? How do we consult residents?
Oh, pardon me. So in the development of the report, there hasn't been a robust community engagement, but we have, of course, been aware that there are already groups that, in essence, do some of this work. So there are groups that are, let me give you an example. So there's a group that is affiliated with Penhorn Lake, for example. This would be a program under which, if they so choose, we'd recognize them as, actual stewards of that park and area. We'd like to recognize them, in a very, very straightforward way by which we'd, say, well, you're looking after this park space to, for a minimum of 2 years, and we'd want to recognize them for their contribution and volunteerism.
Am I out of time? No, I'm not out of time. Okay, linear parks.
So as I mentioned, Chair, linear parks would also be something that would be readily able to be considered through this program, either for park cleanups or for an Adopt a Park program. Of course, if there's any significant complexity to what a group wants to undertake beyond just simple oversight, care, keeping an eye out on things or otherwise, then we'd have to assess that and possibly do maybe a more formalized agreement. But it all depends on the group themselves and what their capacity and interest would be.
Thank you. I'll come back.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Councillor St. Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really great to hear that this is an initiative that we feel like we can take on and we have the resources. The financial implications, you indicate that there's not really any initial financial implications, that you feel like it can be done with the existing resources. I'm curious to know, for point of comparison, if we work back from creating an Adopt a Park program as sort of the baseline, when I compare that to the way that the Great Nova Scotia Pick Me Up is done, while we promote that program, we don't actually manage it, we don't run it. The intake forms that are all done online are done through the province. So what capacity do we have for that intake process to be managed ourselves for this particular program as compared to how we're handling the litter cleanup? That's one. The other is implicitly when we're doing something like this, we're effectively spinning up a small community organization. And so the where my head goes is how do we what does that look like? How does that formalize itself? Is there someone that becomes the leader of that group? And are we going through the process of a background check? Is there an age requirement to join a group? I'm just imagining that there are some potential wrinkles to the creation of these groups within community that we normally have when there are groups that are setting up to run a small soccer league or whatever the case may be. So can you speak to whether or not we have the capacity to provide that layer of protection for the community on that front as well? Because I'm imagining that we would wind up requiring some form of background check, vulnerable persons registry check, et cetera, in order to ensure that these groups that are spun up with our help have the protections needed for the people that wind up joining those groups.
Through the chair, I think those are great questions. So right now, it's important to recognize that while maybe not as formalized as, let's say, a 2-year commitment to undertake and adopt a park program, our parks operations group is largely assisting community groups. So I mentioned, for example, a group around Penhorn Lake. So it's happening on far more of an ad hoc manner. So the idea would be is if we can actually help organize it in many ways so that we've got a formalized intake program, we're able to, again, sort of formalize those steps that you've just outlined, we'll be actually able to undertake that intake in a much more managed way. So it gives us the time to figure out how to do that. I will say that this is not foreseen as, let's say, a robust program in which we've got, let's say, a staff member who is out there promoting it. They're, if you like, almost running it in many ways. It really would rely on community. And it's not, and if you were a community group that wanted to do something much more substantial, that would be a different form of things. We'd be looking at doing some sort of formalized agreement by which there would be a lot more, if you like, paperwork between the municipality and a particular group. This is really meant to be that sort of thing where you're interested in doing something that's rather light in many ways, and our feeling is that we, by way of organizing it, undertaking that intake, and finding ways in which to really facilitate it so that it's not onerous, we'll be able to take that on with our existing resources. Last point to it, if it really takes off and we've got so many community resources, so much benefit to it, well, that may be something we wish to revisit, but we would not see that as a bad thing.
Right. Yeah. The benefits would certainly outweigh any costs going into it. One follow-up question that popped into my head is just, have we identified? Is the intention to identify parks that will become eligible for Adopt a Park, or is it out to the community to identify the parks that they wish to adopt, whether they were specifically on our list or not? And coupled with that, how do we then promote that in community? I mean, it's great that we can map them and include them on the website, but any of our named parks, for example, I mean, putting a simple addition to the sign that says, hey, this park is eligible for Adopt a Park, visit this website to learn more, and it doesn't have to identify any details. It would just make people aware that the program exists.
I'm sure in some of the jurisdictions that we looked at, I'm trying to remember, it was Vancouver, they on their website highlight which parks are actually under the, if you like, the stewardship of a group. Yep. So you're actually able to, if you like, shop on their website to see which parks are available or not. Now, typically through a program like this, it's usually a group that is around a particular park. So in many ways, people that are interested in it join that group or otherwise. But we think there are ways in which to identify, which parks are available, which not. It'd be quite exciting if, in fact, though, that's the extent to which we, the success that we were able to achieve with this, that we actually had a place on our website where people were really looking for different parks to take up that opportunity. But those are the successes that we found in other municipalities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you, Chair. Just a follow-up question. In terms of these volunteers, can you say a bit about the kind of training, education resources that could possibly be made available to them? I know you mentioned resources for cleanups, such as gloves, bags, that kind of thing, but I'm thinking about developing the sort of human capacity side of it more so.
So, Madam Chair, there are instances, these are not things which we're not doing at this particular point. So there are instances where, for example, a community group, let's just say, that may include, Cub Scouts, let's just say. There are instances where our parks operations are helping somewhat, but it really depends upon the extent to which they're doing things. Like, for example, if you were interested in, let's say, planting a horticultural bed, well, that may be something that we're able to provide some assistance, and obviously would want to provide some assistance to make sure that happens in a proper manner. But in terms of the cleanups of things, it's really, there are kits that are already available. Those offer some instructions associated, how to do a cleanup, things like that. So I think it really depends upon the level by which there might be, the community interest.
Okay, so you wouldn't see like a pop-up happening, find out what Adopt a Park is all about. Yeah.
Not necessarily at this
Okay.
particular point. Now, I will say for other things that are more involved, for example, our naturalization program that really does involve, a much more substantial series of plantings and how you undertake that, we have staff that are specific to that particular program, and that would continue. That would be a very different organization of a program by which you really do need staff on site in which to undertake that program, and then it can run itself a little bit with community volunteers, depending upon the type of naturalization activity that's occurring.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Steele. Councillor St. Amand.
One quick follow-up. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. One quick follow-up. I just wanted to ask whether or not you've got a sense of what the timing is for the establishment of a program like this. It's not spoken to in the report, but it sounds like there are relatively few barriers that would prevent it from going ahead fairly quickly.
Madam Chair, I think that's correct to the councillor. And as you've seen, because of some of the advantages that we've seen already, we've already done updates to our website, but we haven't done the promotion enough. And the next step of this would be to really, launch the Adopt a Park program. We're going to find ourselves, I think, gearing up based upon, what the committee recommends and regional council decides. We'd be gearing up that program. I think it's going to be more so maybe the fall, but over the course of the winter to really gear up for next year is my sense of things.
Right. Yeah. So we could have a lot of signups ready to go for when we hit spring.
Madam Chair, that's correct. But and again, just to reiterate, what this program also does in terms of promoting it, but it also allows us to manage the intake a little bit more, so we can, we are not doing it in a haphazard way. We can look at it. We can even say, depending upon the capacity of the municipality, our intake, for example, for Adopt a Park could be over a particular time. So it would be terrific if we had that much, interest that we actually had to manage it in that particular way. But, I would suggest let's see where we go.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. I think this is going to be a really successful and popular program, quite honestly. We have a lot of residents who take an active interest in our parks because they feel connected to these parks, and like they already do have a sense of ownership on them, right? And one of the interesting points in your report here was about the invasive species topic, and that's a hot topic. We have a big invasive species in Cole-Harbour, and I mean, it's pretty to look at, but it strangles out the good vegetation and it can kill trees. So I think more work with our environment folks on how to handle that, how to deal with that, because I know residents have different ideas of how to handle the invasive species. So if that's going to be a part of this program, I think we need some good, clear outlines of what can and cannot happen, and we do need to seriously look at our invasive species because they destroy the good stuff. So I think that's a really important piece. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Okay, Richard.
I know there wasn't a question there, but I just wanted to highlight that the way in which we've now devised the website is that it's scalable, which I think is one of the important things. So if you're interested in doing anything in a park, as new programs develop, we won't be coming back to council to look for those approvals. We'll just be doing it. So if there are, for example, through our climate change group or otherwise, there's a program that started specifically around, species that really shouldn't be in our parks, and if there's an effort in which to clean that up, we would add on to it and anticipate that's how this will work.
Okay.
Thank you. Colleagues, do you mind if I ask a few questions from the chair? Great. Thanks for the presentation, Richard. I know a couple of groups that are, in that world of ad hoc, taking over, working with parks and supporting parks and stuff. And I see this as legitimizing their work and their contribution, which is lovely. The other side of the coin that I'm a little concerned about is that residents then think that somehow we are downloading another task to our residents that is our work about taking care of parks. So I think that there's an awfully fine line in this and how it's marketed, I guess, and how it's communicated. Because if it is really only about supporting what is already there, but it's not about going out and asking people to do the work of our park staff kind of thing. So I think it's a very delicate line to walk for us. And previously, when some community members wanted to do some work and they were told that they couldn't, the reason that they couldn't was always around concerns around liability. So could you speak a little bit to where, I thought I would see that in the risk consideration, but I didn't. So I'm just wondering about if there's a liability concern around community groups or members adopting a park, doing a day cleanup, those kinds of things. Thank you.
So thank you for your questions. I think it's really important as well to highlight that this isn't about, replacing the responsibilities of the municipality. It's really being able to do some things that maybe the municipality doesn't do as part of its regular work or otherwise, and it's to have that bit of community spirit around. So it's not at all about, you would not be saying, I'd like to volunteer to mow the grass. That's not what this is about at all. If we had, for example, let's say a horticultural bed or a series of horticultural beds within a park, but you wanted to, as a community group, to do a planting beyond that, let's just say, or you want to do some springtime cleanup. That's what this is really all about in many ways. And I would also say just having some oversight and care over a park to be able to say, look, maybe there's something that's happened within the park from a not your regular maintenance perspective. It's people that are looking out over it in many ways. In terms of the liability, I think that it would be fair to say that as we would have this intake, there would be that component as well. Those types of things already exist through the Great Nova Scotia Pick Me Up. It's a very easy, informal program by which you can just register through the provincial site and clean up a park. So there aren't a lot of these things, again, are happening. I know it's surprising. They're happening all the time at this particular point. So it's really all about trying not to overcomplicate it in many ways from our perspective, but yes, covering off any issues that we may have to ensure that there's no liability associated with it.
Thank you very much. No other names on the list? Call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Look forward to a whole bunch of people adopting parks. So notice of tabled matters is our next item, and there are none. Correspondence. Madam Clerk, do we have any correspondence?
No correspondence has been received by the clerk's office.
Petitions?
No petitions have been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you. And now we can move to presentations. 10.3.1, proposal for an air-supported dome for tennis courts at Goresbrook Field. And we have Jamie Power here and Rajab Bandhan from Head Start Tennis, and they'll be providing a presentation and answering questions from the committee. So welcome. I believe the time that you have is 10 minutes? You have 10 minutes.
Okay, good morning. My name is Jamie Power. I'm one of the owners of Head Start Tennis. This is Rashad Bandari. He's one of our key staff. I want to thank you for letting us come here and propose our plan for a new seasonal indoor tennis facility at Goresbrook Park. Our vision is to bring year-round accessible tennis to the heart of Halifax, serving the local schools, the universities, families, seniors, recreational players, everyone, with affordable community-first programming. We feel strongly that this is an opportunity to bring indoor tennis to the peninsula, and maybe the only chance to bring indoor tennis to the peninsula. The economics of buying a piece of land on the peninsula and building a new facility and then still keeping the sport affordable just don't really work out. Who we are. So Head Start Tennis over the past while has been Halifax's most successful tennis academy, delivering quality programs to the public in Halifax since 2010. We currently operate a successful seasonal indoor facility and outdoor academy in Clayton Park. The indoor facility is going on its 10th year under our ownership. We serve thousands of participants annually, from little children to seniors. We work closely in association with Tennis Nova Scotia and Tennis Canada to ensure that all of our programs are up to date and we're bringing the best product forward to the community. Why we feel this is needed? Well, first of all, we believe it supports the municipality's goals for active living and inclusive recreation, as well as its commitment to improving health, wellness, and accessibility to all residents. There are no indoor tennis courts currently exist on the peninsula. The only two facilities we have in Halifax, one's in Clayton Park, one's in Bedford, and they're both near 90% capacity, meaning we just don't have the ability to accommodate everybody at these facilities right now. We're having to turn people away, sadly. There's a high demand for affordable indoor tennis and pickleball. In year one alone, we project to have up to 12,000 visits to the facility. University teams, local programs, they lack the ability to practice regularly. They have to commute out to Clayton Park or out to Bedford sometimes, and it's not always easy to do for university members. Through this facility, we think we can help build healthier communities through having year-round tennis. A recent long-term study has shown that regular participation in tennis increases lifespan by up to 9.7 years, the longest out of all activities tested, more than soccer, basketball, any of the other sports. Our program will grow participation and active recreation across the community with little to no financial burden to the municipality, thus ensuring sustainable and affordable access to tennis and pickleball. It will increase the physical and mental and social well-being of the community, creating a variety of new jobs with the economic and social benefits that come with those. As many of us know, tennis is a sport for life. Our participants that we have, our clients, range from the ages of 4 to as old as 98. We'll be providing educational opportunities, coach certification, and volunteering roles to members of the community. Our ask is that we have the municipality proceed with the construction of the 4 tennis courts, including fencing and concrete footings designed for dome support at Goresbrook Park. Allow Head Start Tennis to install and operate the dome, including the heating, lighting, and clubhouse facilities at no cost to the municipality. Grant Head Start full responsibility for facility operations and maintenance. Again, no cost to the municipality. In order to achieve this, we need to secure a 15 to 20-year lease for the seasonal installation of an air-supported dome over the tennis courts at Goresbrook Park, the proposed tennis courts at Goresbrook Park, I should say, with terms similar to our current agreement in Clayton Park, paying the municipality a monthly lease. We would ask that the city collaborates with us on exact court positioning, as well as where the public washrooms are located, just to ensure efficient winter operation. Sometimes when you're putting in a facility, if we need to have a clubhouse or we need to have air support systems, 5 feet left or 5 feet right can make a big difference. That's why we ask for that. Here you see a diagram of the approved Goresbrook Park plan. I believe this is from 2020. You can see the tennis courts outlined in red in option B. We're asking that option A be considered, that the courts be placed right now where there is a outdoor hockey pad. Our understanding is that hockey pad is not well used, but for us, being at that location gets us a lot closer to parking, to natural gas, to water, to sewer, et cetera, which we believe has to come off of Wellington Street. Option B we don't rule that out. It's just would be a significant added cost to run the utilities, et cetera, all the way down to the second location, which is a little further to the west. This project, we're working closely with Tennis Canada and Tennis Nova Scotia, as well as Rogers Communications through Tennis Canada in their year-round community tennis courts program. That is a program designed to assist organizations like us to help cover public courts across this country. We also have support from the Dalhousie University tennis team. I just got a letter of support this morning that's not in this presentation from Pickleball Nova Scotia, who's interested as well. We plan on accommodating them at this facility. Why we need to support this initiative. This model's been successfully operating in Clayton Park since January of 1992, with Head Start Tennis operating the facility since 2016. Head Start Tennis covers all the further construction costs, all the operating costs in the indoor months with no cost to municipality. I know a lot of organizations are often asking for a big chunk of money to get these types of facilities built. We're not doing that. We're going to be paying a monthly lease, just like we do in Clayton Park currently. Covering courts also helps extend their lifespan. You get snow on the courts, you get ice, the cracks grow bigger as the ice freezes every year. This doesn't happen when they're covered. And then you have us looking after them as well, just making sure they're up to date, making sure, because we're going to be running the facility there, so we want to make sure it's looked after. So we're going to be there looking at it. As you can see in the top picture, this is what your tennis courts often look like in the wintertime, and this is what our facility looks like in Clayton Park in the wintertime. What can you do to help this initiative? Help advance the approved 2020 Goresbrook Park planning proposal while developing the 4 courts as planned in the approved proposal. We would need the footings to be inserted to allow the bubble to be there. We will take it from that point, help keep your constituents physically active, and assist with building a healthy community. When it comes down to it, what we're really asking you to do is just do what you're going to do anyway. Just do it a little sooner and get the concrete footings in. We're going to go in, we're going to build it, we're going to operate it at no cost to municipality. We're going to increase the physical and mental well-being of the community. We're going to increase access and participation in sport in the community. And then we're going to pay the city a lease to do that. How do we know it's going to work? It's been working for over 30 years in Clayton Park. We sincerely thank you for this opportunity to come talk to you, and we're open to any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for that presentation. We'll go to members of the committee first, if that's okay. So Vice Chair Janet Steele.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to pick up on your comment. Thank you for your presentation. I'd like to pick up on your comment just about the hockey pad and about it not being well used. Have you personally had any discussions with the people that use the hockey pad? I'm just curious.
I do know of one group that rents the pad. I think it's once a week for part of the year. One of them is a tennis player. So that's the only group that I'm aware of using it. We are in that area frequently. We used to actually lease those current courts that are there to run programs and stuff. And I'm fairly sure I've never seen anyone on that rink.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I am going to put a motion on the floor from my colleague there, Councillor White, but I'm going to let her speak first before I do that. But I just wanted to ask you, you have the support of Tennis Canada and Tennis Nova Scotia. Do you know if there's any commitment of a financial support in their commitment and their support for this?
The only financial support that would be available is through the program through Rogers Communications and Tennis Canada that is designed. It's currently operating several. I think there's 5 or 6 clubs now across the country that have been constructed in this manner, and it's just designed to support organizations like us because we know this model works to cover public courts to help us get these things done. And that's the only financial support that is available.
Okay. Well, then I will put it on the floor then, since I still have some time left here. And I just before I do, I just think like our Parks and Rec program has been really underfunded. We have a growing population, and we are not keeping up with the infrastructure needs for our community's health and wellness and opportunity for sport and play and all of the benefits that brings to everyone. So on behalf of Councillor White, who's not a member of our committee here, I'm just going to put on the floor, she's worked with staff for this, and also I think with yourselves, that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee requests a staff report responding to the request of Head Start Tennis to install an air-supported dome over the 4 planned tennis courts at Gorsebrook Park per the park plan, including recommendations for public consultation and engagement with this organization as a stakeholder when the existing courts are at end of life. So moved. Thank you. And just on this too, I'm sure our staff, when doing this report, will look at other orders of government and any funding opportunities that may come available between now and then. And yeah. Anyway, thanks for bringing this forward. I mean, it makes sense to have a court operational 12 months out of the year rather than 4 or 5. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Councillor White.
Thank you. I'll email you momentarily, Dorothy. Thanks for being here. This is great. I do have lots of questions, and I'll just start with the rink. It's really well used in the summer. Like there's lots of ball hockey, but we're actually having cricket on there because we're lacking cricket space. So I don't know about winter, but we'd have to have some good conversations there about that. My questions were, okay, how would free public access work during the winter? Is that part of it? Washroom, like the likelihood that the washroom and the tennis courts all happen at the same time is maybe low. So wondering if you can get away with like porta potties or how that would work if there were no washrooms. Clubhouse, can you talk more about that? Is that something inside the dome? Because we don't have, that's a big one for Gorsebrook. There's lots of interest in more of a community center and clubhouse, so would be curious on your ideas there. And just to verify, does the dome come off in the summer? And one more, noise. Can you hear anything outside the dome when there's pickleball and big groups of people through the winter? Thank you. I can repeat any if you didn't get them all.
Thankfully, I had Rich write them down as you were. So public access through the winter time. So all of our programs and facility are open to the public, but during the indoor season, there's user fees to use the facility. It's just in order to heat a facility like this, it's just you have to have it. It's not possible otherwise. In the summertime, they're as usual. They're free to anybody who wants to use them. They're public access courts. Like every other court, commons, etc. in the city. And so yes, the bubble does come off. It would come down. We normally have in our agreement right now with Clayton Park, we have 7 months that it's up. So mid-October to mid-May is when we have that installed.
Okay.
For the clubhouse, so the current facility we have in Clayton Park has basically a trailer that's beside the bubble that attaches to the clubhouse. It's a fairly standard size, mobile home trailer type of thing. And that wouldn't be, I don't think it's allowed to be inside the bubble. A fire code, I believe, is a reason. So we would need space there to put that in. I believe something like 16 feet or something is the size of it. I have been down to the courts there and measured out the space that is there where it is proposed to be, and it does exist. There's a little bit of maybe movement to the west of where the tennis courts are proposed to just allow it to be in between the rink and the proposed tennis courts. Bathroom wise, we would hope to run a sewer line to the facility, to the clubhouse of the facility, so that we do have access to bathrooms. We were hoping to try to coordinate with the public washrooms that are supposed to go in on possibly their location, so that maybe there's a place we can work together there. That may or may not be possible. Currently in Clayton Park, we don't have access to sewer and water. We use rainwater to operate the bathroom, and we have a septic tank there that we pump out too frequently, to be honest. But that's how we work it there. We would much prefer to have obviously hooked up to sewer and water if possible. Oh, the noise, yes. There is a small amount of noise. So with a bubble over it, and this likely will be an insulated bubble as well, most of the noise is muffled down. You won't really hear it. If I'm standing outside our current bubble in Clayton Park, you can hear somebody yell really loud, but most of the time you don't really hear anything. It's not like, I know, especially with pickleball, there's a lot of concerns around sound. That shouldn't be an issue, certainly inside. There's not enough. I mean, there's some buildings a little bit of a distance there away from it, but under a bubble, I don't think that'll be an issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor White. Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question just about the motion. So I think we debate the motion after we. Pardon me? Okay, so I want to ask the question now. Then it's not for the presenter.
Sorry, the motion is on the floor.
Okay. So I do have
Yes.
a question. Okay, I do have a question about the motion. I understand the motion. I'll look at Councillor Purdy and Councillor White at the same time. Just the way the consultation component is written is interesting because it says we would do public engagement, including with the stakeholder, referencing the group that's making the proposal. But I'm surprised that we're saying it in that way. Is there a reason for that? Because, when we do public consultation, we're consulting with, perhaps all stakeholders. So, yeah, I'm just curious because there's probably a number of other groups, Councillor White would know well, that may have an interest in how the field is being used. So it's interesting that we're kind of, the motion is a bit awkward to read, and I wondered why we inserted that clause, including with this stakeholder. So I'm curious. It may be a question for the staff.
Yep.
Yes.
So Maggie McDonald, our Executive Director of Parks, will respond.
Through you, Chair, to the councillor, in back and forth with Councillor White, I think the intention is that we engage with Head Start as we progress with our plan, so that it's not missed. There aren't missed opportunities. For example, if we were advancing the washroom or the getting to the end of life on the courts. So it's specific to that engagement around sort of. I think there are two sort of concepts in the motion. As I understand it, one is sort of that public engagement piece, but the other being making sure that we engage with the stakeholder who is the proponent as our plans advance.
With the proponents, but all other stakeholders as well. Okay, it just kind of almost sounded like it was excluding other stakeholders.
No, and I guess the additional context is that the previous direction from council that flowed from the rugby request for a clubhouse at Goresbrook Park directed staff to engage with stakeholders as we advanced sort of the washrooms. So it ties into that a bit as well.
Okay.
It's meant to be, as I understand it, in addition to, not in place.
Okay. It just I was just a bit uncomfortable. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Vice Chair Steele. Councillor White on the motion.
Yes, happy to tweak wording if it make what makes more sense for you. But yeah, it was meant for two things: making sure we get all public, everyone to have their say here, and then just because there's prereqs, we'd have to know that this dome is coming or not when designing the tennis courts. And then there's the washroom piece too. So it did get a little complex. Yeah. Happy to tweak the wording if you see a clearer way. Yeah.
So seeing no further names on the list, Vice Chair Steele, did you want any editing or, oh, Maggie?
Sorry, and this may give the counselor a chance to think about that question. I did just notice, typically we do ask for a staff report that may result in, with cost implications, we do send it to council, regional council. That's been our practice, and I'm looking at the solicitor as well on this. So that community development, community planning and economic development committee requests that regional council direct staff.
Certainly, especially where there's budget implications going into this next year, that might be wise.
Okay, so now we're looking at the motion with a little edit. That the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee requests that Regional Council request a staff report. So we're good with that? Vice Chair Steele?
I was just going to suggest, can we make it a little clearer? Just the business of the fact that all stakeholders are going to be consulted, because I think you suggested that's implied, but
We have direction to consult with all stakeholders already, so this
Okay.
wouldn't supersede that.
Okay,
but certainly
okay,
if there's
okay.
changes, we can.
if there's an overarching direction, that's fine then. Okay, good. Perfect. I'm fine. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. I just had a clarifying question about the stakeholders as well. That would obviously include the orders of government and Tennis Nova Scotia, Tennis Canada. Would that also include those for possible funding help?
So typically for any capital, so the dome piece would be separate and is proposed to be funded separately. So
Right.
that wouldn't be fall to the municipality. Typically for capital projects, if there are opportunities for funding, we would always sort of.
It's just automatically
that's-
assumed.
Yeah, if there
perfect.
are programs available, we do look
Okay.
for them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I see no further names on the list. We call for the question on the motion as it was amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Councillor Purdy? Opposed, nay? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation and taking the time to come here today. Appreciate it. We'll now move on to item 10.3.2, which is rink availability, allocation, and rate fee considerations. And we have Marnie Tuttle from the Bedford Skating Club to provide a presentation and take questions from the committee. Welcome, Marnie, and colleagues. I should tell you that Marnie and I know each other very well.
Yes, and so thank you, Chair Kathy Degel-Gammon, and members of the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee for the opportunity to come and talk to you today. My name is Marnie Tuttle, and today I'm here in my capacity as the president of the Bedford Skating Club. I have to make one personal admission as we go through the presentation. I read the materials that came from the clerk's office very late and have gone back and substituted all the photos with photos of my own kids. So I promise there are more skaters in our community than the ones that you see on the screen. So before launching into the challenges the club is facing, the Bedford Skating Club is facing, I want to tell you a little bit about our club. We are one of 5 recognized skating clubs by Skate Canada in HRM and one of 16 in Nova Scotia. To give you some context, Skate Canada is our national governing body for figure skating in Canada. Our club, like most, is entirely volunteer run, but we employ an administrator and professional coaches accredited by Skate Canada. We work hard to provide a welcoming and inclusive environment, and our mission is to provide the highest quality programs in a welcoming environment to everyone who wants to skate, promoting fitness and a lifelong passion for sport. A little bit more about our club. In 2025, we were recognized by Skate Nova Scotia as the National Club of the Year, highlighting in particular our work with inclusion and our Can Skate program. I didn't want to let you guys think that the Bedford Skating Club specifically talked about Bedford, so I wanted to highlight this little map that's a heat map of where our skaters come from. They come from virtually every part of HRM for our programs when they can get into them. And I think it's also important to note that 75% of our athletes are female. A quick highlight of the challenges we faced over the last 12 months. In 2024-2025, over 260 skaters were waitlisted for our programs. And coming up this fall, we're canceling a popular intro program for teens in order to be able to continue our core programs. The athletes that work with us who have big goals around qualifying for national teams, potentially getting on those Olympic qualifying placements, are almost always leaving our province and our club because we're not able to provide the recommended hours of training that it takes to compete at that level. So the hours of training are driven by Skate Canada's long-term athlete development framework, and development of athletes happens on all levels, including Can Skate, which is the intro program recommended for all for all ice athletes in hockey, ice skating, and speed skating. It's also the Star Skate program where our high-level recreation athletes are competing or are training to become better and to compete within the province. And our competitive skaters that I was just talking about who are seeking those really exceptional opportunities. Inside of all of these programs, we're also the only club in HRM. Thank you so much. We're also the only club in HRM that provides an opportunity to do synchronized skating. So we've done a significant amount of analysis on our ability to offer programming and present it to Councillor Daigle-Gammon and St. Amand, a book of data that I'm sure was completely overwhelming. So they suggested that we sort of highlight some of the key pieces of that. And the pieces we've come away with is the book highlighted the demand in the community to participate in our program, the partnerships we've established to help meet that demand, the delivery standards and the gap between what we're able to offer with our current ice time and the standards recommended by Skate Canada, and the overall challenges our club is facing. When I break those down into the key issues that are relevant to CPED, we see 3 key issues. The HRM rate fee bylaw, which sets the regular season that is no longer compatible with the competition season that comes from the International Skating Union through Skate Canada and to Skate Nova Scotia. Our competitive athletes are done qualifying competitions by November, and the regular season as outlined by the bylaw is October 1st to March 31st. Our star athletes at the advanced level are working on an October to January schedule, and our beginner athletes to a December to April schedule. So none of those line up with the regular season. What we want are, when we went to our counselors, it was actually driven a little bit by the HRM rate bylaw because there was a cancellation of ticket ice for spring summer that was overturned, but it nearly curtailed all our competitive skaters for the season. And while we're grateful that the compromise has been found, the decision was made possible by the rules outlined in the bylaw. We want to chat a little bit as well about ice allocation. We've worked incredibly closely with the HRM staff, and they've been very supportive around the ice needs for figure skating. And one of the senior staff summed it up as putting imperfect data from our club into an imperfect model. And we're multiplying an error, essentially. We'd like to go further to say that the model and the assumptions and the data were designed for other ice sports and aren't necessarily a good match for figure skating. The existing policies do not seem to provide the flexibility for the needs of a growing figure skating club and a sport where all the training falls within a governing body's purview. But I do want to thank the staff. They have been incredibly good to us. Related to that is ice availability. I mentioned about our season. September is a particular challenge as our primary rink is LeBrun. It doesn't open until October. So we're shuffling times, rinks, and reduced capacity just as our competitive athletes are trying to get ready for that qualifying competition. In addition, there is additional ice time available. As you all know, our rinks do sit empty, but they sit empty primarily during school hours, late nights, and on holidays, none of which are a match for our athletes that typically are aged 4 to 18. I also want to be very clear, ice time is incredibly expensive. We're not asking for it to waste it. We have a need to be self-sustaining as a nonprofit, but still run the programs that our athletes need. So we make choices that create a financially sustainable pipeline of skaters that become our volunteers, our coaches, and our officials so that we can continue to have great programs. So I wanted to give you a little taste of our pipeline, and this picture of my kids actually was intended to be in here in the original draft. The skater in the sparkly outfit is one of our officials and assessors for Skate Canada. She's a coach in training. She's a star skater, and she's just retired from our synchro team as she heads off for her next steps. But she started in Can Skate and has been part of this program since she was 4. The one with the short hair in the photo is a qualified Can Skate coach, an adult star skater, a member of Halifax's only adult synchro team. And the shortest one is a star skater and a volunteer. And just to give you a little flavor, they all volunteer hundreds of hours every year to make it possible for the programs to run. And so when we think about that pipeline, we need to get kids into Can Skate so that they have an opportunity to learn to do ice sports. And then as they advance, we need to provide them the opportunities for their athletic development, and then they provide the opportunities for the next generation in sport. So to support youth like these 3 and the hundreds of others, I came today asking you to help us move forward by requesting CPED consult with all ICE users to evaluate the impacts of the HRM rate fee bylaw on programs, to consider a review of the policy and processes for ICE allocation, and to review ice time availability in the context of school schedules and sport-specific requirements. and I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I've provided all of my contact information there, as well as the information on the club. And I'm more than willing to do my best to answer questions. I was supposed to have our administrator with us, but she's taking a well-deserved holiday.
Thank you very much, Marty. Appreciate the presentation. I'm going to ask Vice Chair Steele to take the chair. Oops.
Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. I'm not actually set up here yet, so I'm going to wing it. You'll have to tell me when I'm out of time. Marnie, thank you for the presentation. Colleagues, as Marnie has said, I've had a couple of meetings with the skate club, and Councillor St. Amand and I both met with them. And I've had some conversations with staff and with staff that does the scheduling around ice time. So it's been a really interesting learning experience, because we are such a hockey-centric community that looking at what are the other uses of our ice time other than hockey, we've almost built a system around that, which is lovely. But I think we have to have a little bit of a relook at what that is. And so I do have a motion that we've worked with staff on. So the motion is that CPED request that Regional Council direct the CAO to prepare a staff report with 1, an update on the long-term arena strategy and the approach to future facilities planning for arenas. 2, a review of the impacts of the single flat rate as set by the HRM rate fee bylaw for spring and summer, and the dates for those seasons on provincial sport organizations. And 3, information on the implementation of the current ice allocation policy, challenges, and the opportunities for improvement. Thank you, Councillor Purdy. So this motion, it was developed with the support of staff and in consultation and from the information that Councillor St. Amand and I had gleaned. So I would ask for your support. It is a motion that requests that Regional Council direct the CIO because there is the possibility of a financial implication. So that's all for me.
So are there any further? Okay, thank you, Councillor Purdy. Okay, call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded? Nay? No? Okay, the motion has passed.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Marnie, for coming in and taking the time to do the presentation with us. We now move on to public participation. At 4:30 yesterday, there was no registered speakers for the meeting, but we will ask 3 times if there's anyone in the gallery that would like to speak. The second time, is there anyone from the gallery that would like to speak? The third and final time, anyone from the gallery? So hearing none, we move on to item 12, which is information items brought forward. There are none. And now to our reports. And this report 13.1.1 is the lighting strategy in existing parks. Staff do have a presentation and they're available to answer any questions. So we have Stephen Cushings, landscape architect, and he'll be supported by Richard Harvey, the manager of policy and planning. Welcome, Stephen.
Good morning, Chair and councillors. As mentioned, my name is Stephen Cushing. I'm a landscape architect in the Policy and Planning Division of Parks and Recreation. I'm here this morning to speak on the supplemental report, Park Lighting Strategy Supplemental Report for Lighting in Existing Parks. So back in 2021, Regional Council requested a staff report for what it would take to scope a park lighting strategy. And this was based on a conversation noting some of our prominent issues within parks, especially the nighttime use of parks. So safety, security, accessibility, and overall enjoyment of parks. In August 2022, we delivered a scoping report that was approved by Regional Council to kind of set the stage for what a strategy would become. So the strategy itself was approved earlier this year, and that has become the main guiding document for park lighting. At that meeting, Councillor Austin did express some concerns that funding for lighting would continue to compete with other priorities within limited budgets, potentially delaying the overall advancement of the strategy. And so the motion at that meeting was amended to include the supplemental report for priorities and budgeting. Before that January meeting, there was no formal process in place to consider lighting. It was really on a project-by-project basis. And that's despite the fact that lighting has become an expected component of public life for safety, accessibility, overall park enjoyment. The strategy itself does put a focus on park pathways in particular, but it provides guidance for facilities and placemaking installations as well. A defining approach in the strategy is that lighting is considered as a standard capital component on all new capital projects. However, at that January meeting, Council was looking for more clarity on priorities and budgeting for projects within existing parks. So following the guidance in the strategy itself, lighting projects in existing parks are brought forward under 4 primary conditions. The first being as part of any new and recapitalized project, when we can integrate lighting as part of overlapping initiatives across multiple business units, those larger integrated capital projects that we have on the go within our region. When external partnerships or funding can be leveraged to cost share or cost recover, and when safety data highlights a pressing need. So we sat down internally to figure out what projects may fall within these 4 categories, and those are further highlighted in attachment A of this report. Those projects were weighed against this lighting suitability criteria list, which are further explained in the report. These were developed through the park lighting strategy itself. And these criteria, they're not weighted. They're used to, as a qualitative conversation to understand how readily a project could be advanced based on the physical and social factors that are identified. So parks that meet these criteria that have minimal intervention required to be suitable for lighting surface as the highest priority. So a pathway may have some requests for lighting, but it may require an extensive planning and capital conversation and cost to bring that park pathway up to a level of to be suitable and for lighting and to be accessible. Whereas we may have another situation where recapitalization is already in a budget, or a pathway may already be suitable for lighting, and so the cost there would just be the lighting component. Because the strategy puts a focus on park pathways, that is the dominant cost that you see in this report. For park pathways in particular surfaced as a priority during this particular evaluation, the Dartmouth Common being the first, and there are 2 spines in particular from the Wise and Thistle corner diagonally across to the Victoria Dahlia corner, and from Park Avenue up to the crosswalk to the Dartmouth Sportsplex and the Dartmouth Bridge Terminal. Captain William Spry Center Park, the 2 pedestrian entrances from Herring Cove Road. The George Dixon Community Center Park, the pathway network throughout except for the main spine in front of the community center, which has lighting on it. So that's connecting residents to the commercial strip to transit. and the North Preston Community Center between Kane Street and Simmons Road, the main connector pathway connecting residents to the center and facilities along that pathway. We've identified sport courts as well because of the recapitalization process. Although sport courts are not considered essential lighting, it isn't part of the intent of the strategy to consider lighting when courts are being recapitalized. And we've identified 4: the Grand Desert Park Basketball Court, Northbrook Park Tennis Court, Harry R. Hamilton Elementary School Park Basketball Court, and J. Smeltzer Junior High School Park Basketball Court. So in terms of costing and delivery, as is mentioned throughout the report and conversations you've already had at council, lighting infrastructure represents a significant investment that can be challenging to advance given competing priorities in the Parks and Recreation budget each year. Gradually delivering on lighting as funding becomes available was not seen as a favorable approach. Council requested that potential projects be identified and prioritized. So to advance the projects identified in the report, $2.9 million for park pathways and $900,000 for courts is required within existing funding levels. These projects would be advanced over 5 years, in which case the capital could also be spread out over 5 years. However, these projects aren't within the existing Parks and Rec 5-year plan, so that these projects and these costs would be above and beyond what was anticipated over that kind of long-term forecasting. So there would have to be some shifting to accommodate these plans in the budget and business plan. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I appreciate that presentation. Councillor St. Amand has a question. And Councillor St. Amand, if you would like to put the motion on the floor, that'd be great.
Certainly. I move that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to include the park pathway and court lighting as identified in the staff report dated May 29th, 2025 in the 2026-27 capital plan with current funding level, or within current funding levels, and with implementation occurring over 5 years subject to the annual capital project prioritization process.
And a seconder? Vice Chair Steele, thank you so much. Councillor St. Amand.
Thank you very much for laying it out so clearly. Obviously, whenever additional costs crop up, we're all going to be a little bit nervous because we know that that winds up having implications to our taxpayers, and so I think specifically the fact that the motion refers to prioritization levels speaks well to the sensitivity to that. One of the things that I noted in the suitability criteria, and maybe it's just that this is addressed by an amalgam of some of the priorities that were outlined, but one of the things that immediately came to my mind, because we had this conversation back when the lighting strategy was discussed, was the role that individual pathways and parks play in our active transportation network. And so, while you said that there wasn't a ranking order within that list, I'd like you to speak to whether or not that was specifically, even though not articulated as a separate point, whether that was part of the evaluation process, because there are some parks that are a little further off the beaten path and other parks that play a vital role and a central role in our AT infrastructure because they're either really near to a school, really near to a connection between different areas of a neighborhood, or really close by to transit. And so I'd like to know that is formally being considered as part of the evaluation process, but also the prioritization of locations that are picked.
Through you, Chair. That AT component is considered. It's not a standalone kind of criteria. It kind of speaks to that park use element. It speaks to the equity piece, those who are relying on those pathways for daily movement.
Right.
It's speaking to the accessibility component as well, because we do have accessibility requirements on formalized AT connections. So it's not fully called out, but that is considered. So, there's one project in particular, the Dartmouth Common. That's an important, not only pedestrian connection, but overall AT connection. That's part of the thinking that went in behind that, in addition to some of the other reasons why that surfaced to the
I
top.
figured that would be the case. Seeing that one on the list,
Yeah.
it struck me as being influenced by that.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor St. Amand. Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Stephen, for the presentation. My question was similar to Councillor St. Amand's. I was actually hoping perhaps to see active transportation as part of the assessment criteria in terms of establishing priorities. I do really believe active transportation is super important, and particularly when we're linking to transit and schools. So I'm not necessarily aware of all the sites that you've selected as priorities, how they check those boxes. I don't know if you have further background information you can speak to in terms of some of the sites. I keep thinking about the mainland linear in my district, not to just speak about one district, but normally it is an active transportation route. Right now, I receive many calls and expressions of disappointment because it's not available. But I'm curious about this. It's not jumping out at me how active transportation is played. You mentioned it's on the equity piece. You mentioned some of the other things are there. I guess I'm wondering, is linkages to school and HRM facilities, like a sports and rec facilities as well, were they part of the criteria? Were they embedded, for example? So just kind of beating the drum on active transportation, I guess.
Through your chair, we definitely considered those things, and so when we consider a pathway for lighting, we consider those pathways should be those essential community connections between point A and point B. The trails that are exclusively used for recreation purposes, although very important, they wouldn't be the most important because we know that people are trying to get from home to work to school, and those would be what we see as a higher priority. We know that there's no shortage of projects that we would want to bring forward. We knew that we would have to have some filtering, and that's why the 4 conditions that we presented, that's how we're filtering incoming projects right now. So it's not this free-for-all of this is a really important AT, this is really important, this is a really important AT. So we know that we can bring those projects forward as we need to recap them, as we can kind of cost share with AT in particular, as we can, if there's utility underneath, cost share when those have to be, recapitalize those utilities. I'll also say that anytime there's a major active transportation project in the works, we're sitting down with those planners and those engineers to make sure that lighting is a component of that planning. And then those can still come forward for council's consideration, separate from this prioritization exercise. So there's, those other AT and pathway related projects will still be considered. But this was just that first flush at this point in time of what needs a separate long-term stream of funding consideration.
Okay, I'm just curious, did you have a scoring grid that's shareable with us and perhaps with the public? I think that might be useful in terms of transparency, how you applied your criteria.
Through you, Chair. We didn't weigh these suitability criteria because we know that it's very nuanced. It's more of a qualitative conversation. What we did do is put a few notes in the appendix for the 30 or just under 30 spaces that were evaluated, as to especially why it wasn't considered a top priority, whether it's an accessibility consideration, whether it's AT is already planning something and those projects will be coming forward in the next 5 years. But there is some reasoning why those weren't considered, even though they would still be considered worthwhile projects to advance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Steele. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you can go back to the second last slide up there for your presentation. It had the financial. Yeah, that one. Yeah. So I mean, this is a really important report. Like we're kind of playing catch up, I think, in a lot of our areas here in the municipality. But like, just it's unfortunate that it's so expensive. I think that's just going to be the cry of all of us for the next few years. Everything is so expensive. But I mean, our sports fields could be utilized for much longer during the days in the summer if we had lighting available on our sports fields, and our, of course, active transportation, of course, as we've all are concerned about making sure they are well lit, because, you know, it gets dark at 5 in the winter for a couple of months. So it's not like this is just for folks walking late at night, although that's important too, to have adequate lighting. Not just for safety, for, you know, personal safety, but, you know, tripping or seeing where your feet are falling. So, so thank you. I think this is important, and I think it is almost like impossible because there are so many needs. So we're all thinking, how do you prioritize when everything seems to be a priority? So I appreciate your work on this, and we're starting, and I think it's good work. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Purdy. Seeing no other names on the list, we call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you for the presentation and for your work. Our next item is motions, and there are none. In camera, there is none. We have no added items. Notices of motion? I see none. Date of our next meeting is September 18th, 2025. And we got asked for a motion to adjourn by Councillor St. Amand at 11:33. Thank you so very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.